There we go. There we go. Just a little bit of scuff to start the stream with. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. I hope you're all having a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Emmy, thank you very much for getting first. I know you're doing stuff at the moment. Appreciate you popping in. Thank you very much for your daily check-in. Gabby, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for lurking. I always appreciate you being here. I hope you're having a good day. Explosive, nicely done getting second. Thank you very much for being here. Vanilla, how's it going? Thank you for getting third. Thank you for your daily check-in as well. Yeah. So we're just doing a nice, calm, easy stream today. You got third, yeah? You did good, Vanilla. You did good. Yeah, we're just doing a nice, easy stream today. Nothing too fancy. We're just gonna do some reading, relax a little bit. We've made some really good progress through Good Omens. I think we're nearly about 3/4 of the way through the book. So, yeah, I'm going to be a little sad when we finish this book because I do love it. It's an excellent book, one of my favorites. But I have got some other things we can read and enjoy. So yeah, hopefully we'll pick up some of those. Hey Dragon, how's it going? Welcome on in. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for your daily check-in. I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, we are just going to do some reading, so I will pick up where we left off. I think we got to the point where the four horsemen had revealed themselves. They were making their way to the Antichrist, and Aziraphale and Crowley are also making their way towards the Antichrist. So yeah. Vanilla, thank you for the posture check. I will do that now. I appreciate you taking care of me. Thank you very much. Now, let's carry on. The lorry blocked the road, and the corrugated iron blocked the road, and a 30-foot high pile of fish blocked the road. It was one of the most effectively blocked roads the sergeant had ever seen. Rain wasn't helping. Any idea when the bulldozers are likely to get here? He shouted into his radio. We're doing the best we came the reply. He felt something tugging at his trouser cuff and looked down. Lobsters? He gave a little skip and a jump, wound up on top of the police car. Lobsters, he said. There were about 30 of them, some over 2 feet long. Most of them were on their way up the motorway. Half a dozen had stopped to check out the police car. Something wrong, Sarge? Asked the police constable, who was taking down the lorry driver's details on the hard shoulder. I just don't like lobsters, said the sergeant grimly, shutting his eyes. They bring me out in a rash. Too many legs. I'll just sit up here a bit, and you can tell me when they're all gone. He sat on top of the car, in the rain, felt the water seeping into the bottom of his trousers. There was a low roar. Thunder? No. It was continuous and getting closer. Motorbikes. The sergeant opened one eye. Jesus Christ! There were 4 of them, and they had to be doing over 100 miles an hour. He was about to climb down, to wave at them, to shout, but they were past him, heading straight for the upturned lorry. There was nothing the sergeant could do. He closed his eyes again and listened for the collision. He could hear them coming closer. Then, whoosh, 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 and a voice in his head that said, I'll catch up with the rest of you. Did you see that? Asked really cool people. They flew right over it. Heckin' hell, said GBH. If they can do that, we can too. The sergeant opened his eyes. He turned to the police constable and opened his mouth. The police constable said, They flew right. Thud, 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 splat. There was another rain of fish, although of shorter duration and more easily explicable. A leather-jacketed arm waved feebly from the large pile of fish. A motorbike wheel spun hopelessly. That was Scuzz, semi-conscious, deciding that if there was one thing he hated more than the French, it was being up to his neck in fish with what felt like a broken leg. He truly hated that. He wanted to tell GBH about his new role, but he couldn't move. Something wet and slippery slithered up one sleeve. Later, when they dragged him out of the fish pile and he'd seen the other 3 bikers with the blankets over their heads, he realized it was too late to tell them anything. That was why they hadn't been in that Book of Revelations Pig Bog had been going on about. They'd never made it that far down the motorway. Scuzz muttered something. The police sergeant leaned over. "Don't try to speak, son," he said. "The ambulance will be here soon." "Listen," croaked Scuzz. "Got something important to tell you. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They're right bastards, all 4 of them." "He's delirious," announced the sergeant. "I'm sodding not. I'm people covered in fish," croaked Scuzz, and passed out. The London traffic system is many hundreds of times more complex than anyone imagines. This has nothing to do with influences, demonic or angelic. It's more to do with geography and history and architecture. Mostly this works to people's advantage, although they'd never believe it. London was not designed for cars. Come to that, it wasn't designed for people. It just sort of happened. This created problems, and the problems that were implemented became the next problems, 5 or 10 or 100 years down the line. The latest solution had been the M25, a motorway that formed a rough circle around the city. Up until now, the problems had been fairly basic. Things like it being obsolete before they had finished building it. Einsteinian tailbacks that eventually became tail forwards. That kind of thing. The current problems was that it didn't exist, not in normal human spatial terms anyway. The tailback of cars unaware of this, or trying to find alternative routes out of London, stretched into the city centre from every direction. For the first time ever, London was completely gridlocked. The city was one huge traffic jam. Cars in theory give you a terrifically fast method of travelling from place to place. Traffic jams, on the other hand, give you a terrific opportunity to stay still, in the rain and the gloom, while around you, cacophonous symphony of horns grew ever louder and more exasperated. Crowley was getting sick of it. He'd taken the opportunity to reread Aziraphale's notes, to thumb through Agnes Nutter's prophecies, and to do some serious thinking. His conclusions could be summarized as follows. Armageddon was underway. There was nothing Crowley could do about this. It was going to happen in Tadfield, or to begin there at any rate, and that it was going to happen everywhere. Crowley was in Hell's bad books. Not that Hell has any other kind. Aziraphale was, as far as could be estimated, out of the equation. All was black, gloomy and awful. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, or if there was, it was an oncoming train. He might just as well find a nice little restaurant and get completely and utterly pissed out of his mind while he waited for the world to end. And yet... And that was where it all fell apart, because underneath it all, Crowley was an optimist. If there was one rock-hard certainty that sustained him through the bad times, he thought briefly of the 14th century, then it was utter surety that he would come out on top, that the universe would look after him. Okay, so Hell was down on him, so the world was ending, so the Cold War was over and the Great War was starting for real, so the odds against him were... so the odds against him were higher than a van load of hippies on a blotter full of Oswey's old original. There was still a chance. It was all a matter of being in the right place at the right time. The right place was Tadfield. He was certain of that. Partly from the book, partly from some other sense. In Crowley's mental map of the world, Tadfield was throbbing like a migraine. The right time was getting there before the end of the world. He checked his watch. He had 2 hours to get to Tadfield, although probably even the normal passage of time was pretty shaky by now. Explosive, thank you for your daily check-in. I appreciate you being here. Crowley tossed the book into the passenger seat. Desperate times, desperate measures. Safan, welcome on in. Thank you for your daily check-in. I appreciate you being here. He had maintained the Bentley without a scratch for 60 years. What the hell? He reversed suddenly, causing severe damage to the front of the red Renault 5 behind him, drove up on the pavement. He turned on his lights and sounded his horn. That should give any pedestrian sufficient warning that he was coming. And if they couldn't get out of the way, well, it'd all be the same in a couple of hours. Maybe. Probably. Hey-ho, said Anthony Crowley. Just drove anyway. There were 6 women and 4 men. Each of them had a telephone and a thick wad of computer printouts, covered with names and telephone numbers. By each of the numbers was a pen notation saying whether the person dialed was in or out, whether the number was currently connected, most importantly, whether or not anybody who answered the phone was avid for cavity wall insulation to enter their lives. Most of them weren't. The 10 people sat there, hour after hour, cajoling, pleading, promising through plastic smiles. Between calls they made notations, sipped coffee, marveled at the rain flooding down the windows. They were staying at their posts like the band on the Titanic. If you couldn't sell double glazing in weather like this, you couldn't sell it at all. Lisa Morrow was saying, "Now if you'll only let me finish, sir, and yes, I understand that, sir, but if you'll only..." And then seeing that he'd just hung up on her, she said, "Well, up yours, snotface." She put down the phone. "I got another bath," she announced to her fellow telephone salespersons. She was well in the lead in the office daily, getting people out of the bath stakes, and only needed 2 more points to win the weekly Coitus Interruptus award. She dialed the next number on the list. Lisa had never intended to be a telephone salesperson. What she really wanted to be was an internationally glamorous jet setter, but she didn't have the O-levels. Had she been studious enough to be accepted as an internationally... Had you been studious enough to be accepted as an internationally glamorous jet setter, or a dental assistant, her second choice profession, or indeed anything other than a telephone salesperson in that particular office, she would have had a longer and probably more fulfilled life. Perhaps not a very much longer life, all things considered, it being the day of Armageddon, but several hours anyway. For that matter, all she really needed to do for a longer life was not ring the number she had just dialed, listed on her sheet as the Mayfair home of, the best traditions of 10th hand mail order lists, Mr. A. J. Cowley. But she had dialed, and she had waited while it rang 4 times, and she had said, "Oh, poot, another handsome phone," and made to put down the handset. But then something climbed out of the earpiece. Something very big, very angry. It looked like a little maggot. A huge, angry maggot, made out of tens, thousands, and thousands of tiny little maggots, all writhing and screaming, millions of little maggot mouths opened, shutting in fury, and every one of them was screaming, "Crowley!" It stopped screaming, swayed blindly, seemed to be taking stock of where it was. Then it went to pieces. The thing split into thousands of writhing grey maggots. They flowed over the carpet, up over the desks, over Lisa Morrow and her 9 colleagues. They flowed into their mouths, up their nostrils, into their lungs. They burrowed into their flesh, and eyes and brains and lights, reproducing wildly as they went, filling the room with a towering mess of writhing flesh and gunk. The whole began to flow together, to coagulate into one huge entity that filled the room from floor to ceiling, pulsing gently. A mouth opened in the mass of flesh, strands of something wet and sticky adhering to each of the not exactly lips, and Hasta said, "I needed that." Spending half an hour trapped on an answer phone with only a Aziraphale's message for company had not improved his temper. Neither did the prospect of having to report back to Hell and having to explain why he hadn't returned half an hour earlier, and more importantly, why he was not accompanied by Crowley. Hell did not go a bundle on failures. On the plus side, however, he at least knew what Aziraphale's message was. The knowledge could probably buy him his continued existence. And anyway, he reflected, if he were ever going to have to face the possible wrath of the Dark Council, at least it wouldn't be on an empty stomach. The room filled with thick, sulphurous smoke. When it cleared, Hasta was gone. There was nothing left in the room but 10 skeletons, picked quite clean of meat, and some puddles of melted plastic with, here and there, a gleaming fragment of metal that might once have been part of a telephone. Much better to have been a dental assistant. But to look on the bright side, all this only went to prove that evil contains the seeds of its own destruction. Right now, across the country, people who would otherwise have been made just that little bit more tense and angry by being summoned from a nice bath or having their names mispronounced at them were instead feeling quite untroubled and at peace with the world. As a result of Hasta's action, a wave of low-grade goodness started to spread exponentially through the population, and millions of people who ultimately would have suffered minor bruises of the soul did not, in fact, do so. So that was all right. You wouldn't have known it as the same car. There was squarely an inch of it undented. Both front lights were smashed. The hubcaps were long gone. It looked like the veteran of 100 demolition derbies. The pavements had been bad. The pedestrian underpass had been worse. The worst bit had been crossing the River Thames. At least he'd had the foresight to roll up all the windows. Still, he was here, now. In a few hundred yards, he'd be on the M40, a fairly clear run up to Oxfordshire. There was only one snag. Once more, between Crowley and the open road, was the M25, a screaming, glowing ribbon of pain and dark light. You may think that's an oxymoron, but it's not actually. It's the colour past ultraviolet. The technical term for it is infra-black. It can be seen quite easily under experimental conditions. To perform the experiment, simply select a healthy brick wall with a good run-up and, lowering your head, charge. The colour that flashes in bursts behind your eyes, behind the pain, just before you die, is infra-black. Odegra. Nothing could cross the M25 and survive. Nothing mortal, anyway. And he wasn't sure what it would do to a demon. It couldn't kill him, but it wouldn't be pleasant. There was a police roadblock in front of the flyover before him. Burnt-out wrecks, some still burning, testified to the fate of previous cars that had tried to drive across the flyover above the dark road. The police did not look happy. Crowley shifted down into second gear and gunned the accelerator. He went through the roadblock at 60. That was the easy bit. Cases of spontaneous human combustion are on record all over the world. One minute someone's quite happily chugging along with their life, The next, there's a very sad photograph of a pile of ashes and a lonely and mysteriously uncharred foot or hand. Cases of spontaneous vehicular combustion are less well documented. Whatever the statistics were, they had just gone up by 1. The leather seat covers began to smoke. Staring ahead of him, Crowley fumbled left hand on the passenger seat for Agnes Nutter's nice and accurate prophecies, moved it to the safety of his lap. He wished she'd prophesied this. In fact, she had. The prophecy read, "A street of light will scream, the black chariot of the serpent will flame, and a queen will sing Quicksilver's song no more." Most of the family had gone along with the jealousy device, who wrote a brief monologue in the 1830s explaining it as a metaphor for the banishment of Weishaupt's Illuminati from Bavaria in 1785. At this point, the flames engulfed the car. He had to keep driving. On the other side of the flyover was a further police roadblock to prevent the passage of cars trying to come into London. They were laughing about a story that had just come over the radio, that a motorbike cop on the M6 had flagged down a stolen police car, only discovered the driver to be a large octopus. Some police forces would believe anything. Not the Metropolitan Police, though. The Met was the hardest, most cynically pragmatic, most stubbornly down-to-earth police force in Britain. It would take a lot to phase a copper from the Met. It would take, for example, a huge battered car that was nothing more nor less than a fireball, a blazing, roaring, twisted metal lemon from hell, driven by a grinning lunatic in sunglasses, sitting amid the flames, trailing thick black smoke, coming straight at them through the lashing rain and wind at 80 miles per hour. That would do it. The quarry was the calm centre of a stormy world. Thunder didn't just rumble overhead, it tore the air in half. "I've got some more friends coming," Adam repeated. "They'll be here soon, and then we can really get started." Dogs started to howl. It was no longer the siren howl of a lone wolf, but the weird oscillations of a small dog in deep trouble. Pepper had been sitting staring at her knees. There seemed to be something on her mind. Finally, she looked up and stared at him in the blank grey eyes. "What bit are you going to have, Adam?" she said. The storm was replaced by a sudden, ringing silence. "What?" said Adam. "Well, you divided up the world, right? And we've all of us got to have a bit. What bit are you going to have?" The silence sang like a harp, high and thin. "Yeah," said Brian. "You never told us what bit you're having." "Pepper's right," said Wensleydale. "Don't seem to me there's much left. We've got to have all these countries." Adam's mouth opened and shut. "What?" he said. "What bit's yours, Adam?" said Pepper. Adam stared at her. Dog had stopped howling and had fixed his master with an intent, thoughtfully mongrel stare. "Me?" he said. The silence went on and on, one note that could drown out the noises of the world. "But I'll have Tadfield," said Adam. They stared at him. And Lower Tadfield, and Norton Woods." They still stared. Adam's gaze dragged itself across their faces. "They're all I've ever wanted," he said. They shook their heads. "I can have them if I want," said Adam, his voice tinged with sudden defiance, and his defiance edged with sudden doubt. "I can make them better, too. Better trees to climb, better ponds, better—" His voice trailed off. "You can't," said Wensleydale flatly. "They're not like America and those places. They're really real. Anyway, they belong to all of us. They're ours." "And you couldn't make 'em better," said Brian. Anyway, even if you did, we'd all know, said Pepper. Oh, if that's all that's worrying you, don't you worry, said Adam airily, because I could make you all just do whatever I wanted. He stopped, his ears listening in horror to the words his mouth was speaking. The them were backing away. Dog put his paws over his head. Adam's face looked like an impersonation of the collapse of empire. No, he said hoarsely. No, come back! I command you! They froze in mid-dash. Adam stared. No, I didn't mean it, he began. You're my friends. His body jerked. His head was thrown back. He raised his arms and pounded the sky with his fists. His face twisted. The chalk floor cracked under his trainers. Adam opened his mouth and screamed. It was a sound that a merely mortal throat should not have been able to utter. It wound out of the quarry, mingled with the storm, causing the clouds to curl into new and unpleasant shapes. It went on and on. It resounded around the universe, which is a good deal smaller than physicists would believe. It rattled the celestial spheres. It spoke of loss, and it did not stop for a very long time. And then it did. Something drained away. Adam's head tilted down again. His eyes opened. Whatever had been standing in the old quarry before, Adam Young was standing there now. A more knowledgeable Adam Young. But Adam Young nonetheless. Possibly more of Adam Young than there had been before. The ghastly silence in the quarry was replaced by a more familiar, comfortable silence, the mere and simple absence of noise. Okay guys, we've got an ad break coming in, so I'm going to put us onto the BRB screen, take a 2-3 minute break, grab a drink, stretch your legs, get some food, take it nice and easy, and we'll come back and carry on reading. I'll see you all shortly. Didn't you try and threaten me with a good time? Right. Well, let me in! Let me in! Let me in! Oh god, I clipped it. Yeah, there we go, brute force. What do you mean? Oh, what do you mean landing's unavailable right now? Oh, come on. This is a perfectly legitimate place for me to be. Oh god, okay. Actually, I'm kind of thinking that maybe I wasn't supposed to get in here. That's not how you do it. Well, that's how I did it. Oh god, can we fly through the window or something? Nope. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We may have actually just clipped out of bounds a bit. I think I broke the game. Oh no. We've totally clipped out of the game. Oh, how can I get out of here? Oh god, yeah, we oh god. Oh god. Guys, I've broken it. Oh god, I've broken it. This is fine. This is fine. Yeah, swim.
Swimming. Swim. Wait, I can't swim very well though. I feel like I'm a toddler.
You need to pull back harder. Harder.
That's what she said.
Reem, do it harder.
I'm doing it.
Oh my god. Okay.
What a pretty view.
Do you need me to like support you while you?
No, I didn't actually look at.
That, play the bullfrog there. I don't have many cards. I need to break open that one.
I know what else you could break open.
Oh my god. That was all of 2
Wait,
seconds.
did I say that out loud? My bad.
Yes! Yes, you did.
God damn it.
That was all of 2 seconds. That was all of 2 seconds, I swear. Okay.
It could be longer than that.
Jesus. Thank you very much for coming in, Turquoise. Thank you very much for the raid. Honestly, really appreciate it. We are playing Outer Wilds, which is our new game of the week for Friday. We played a bit of Entropy Center earlier, and it was a lot of fun. So, yay, thank you, proud of you. Thanks for the shout out. I appreciate that too. So we're kind of, how's it going? It's going good. Oh wait, what the hell? Well, It was going good. Oh god, and it crashed. Okay, the sun just exploded. That's okay. So we what the hell's going on now?
I'm gonna do this. Hopefully it works. Okay.
Nope, 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 nope. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Nope, don't like that. Nope. Oh god. Yeah. Yeah. Don't like that. You did this to me. You.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, bridge there. Okay, welcome back everybody, welcome back. Thank you for bearing with us through the ad breaks. We now have no ads for another hour. Hey Snowy, how's it going? Welcome on in. Hey Ray, how you doing? I appreciate you coming in as well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. It's always lovely to see you here. OMG, did you finally randomize the clips? I have. I've also, I looked at a few solutions for randomizing the clips and for getting the clips. I did find that there was a slight issue with putting them live off of Twitch. So I've actually just downloaded as many as I can for the time being. And I've got them set locally to randomize. And as more clips are created, I will download them and add them into the collection. So yeah. Little stream improvement to make the BRB screen a bit more interesting for you. Anyway, let's carry on where we got to. The ghastly silence in the quarry was replaced by a more familiar, comfortable silence, the mere and simple absence of noise. The freed them cowered against the chalk cliff, their eyes fixed on him. "It's all right," said Adam quietly. "Pepper, Wensley, Brian, come back here. It's all right. It's all right. I know everything now. And you've got to help me. Otherwise it's all going to happen. It's really all going to happen. It's all going to happen if we don't do something." Yippee! I'm glad that pleases you. Glad that pleases you, Snowy. The plumbing in Jasmine Cottage heaved and rattled and showered Newt with water, slightly khaki in colour, but it was cold. It was probably the coldest cold shower Newt had ever had in his life. It didn't do any good. "There's a red sky," he said when he came back. He was feeling slightly manic. At 4:30 in the afternoon, in August. What does that mean? In terms of delighted nautical operatives, would you say? I mean, if it takes a red sky at night to delight a sailor, what does it take to amuse the man who operates the computers on a supertanker? Or is it shepherds who are delighted at night? I can never remember. Anathema eyed the plaster in his hair. The shower hadn't got rid of it. It was merely dampened it down and spread it out so that Newt looked as though he was wearing a white hat with hair in it. You must have got quite a bump," she said. No, that was when I hit my head on the wall. You know, when you..." "Yes," Anathema looked quizzically out of the broken window. "Would you say it's blood-coloured?" she said. "It's very important." "I wouldn't say that," said Newt, his train of thought temporarily derailed. "Not actual blood, more pinkish. Probably the storm put a lot of dust in the air." Anathema was rummaging through the nice and accurate prophecies. "What are you doing?" he said. "I'm trying to cross-reference. I still can't be..." "I don't think you need to bother," said Newt. "I know what the rest of 3477 means. It came to me when I..." "What do you mean you know what it means?" "I saw it on my way down here. Don't snap like that. My head aches. I mean, I saw it. They've got it written down outside the airbase of yours. It's got nothing to do with peas. It's peace is our profession. It's the kind of thing they put up on boards outside air bases. You know, SAC 8,657,745th Wing, the Screaming Blue Demons, peace is our profession. That sort of thing. Newt clutched his head. Euphoria was definitely fading. If Agnes is right, then there's probably some madman in there right now, winding up all the missiles and knocking the governor balls off, whatever they've got. No, there isn't, said Anathema firmly. Oh yes, I've seen films. Name me one good reason why you can be so sure. There aren't any bombs there, or missiles. Everyone round here knows that. But it's an airbase. It's got runways. That's just for transport planes and things. All they've got up there is communications gear, radios and stuff. Nothing explosive at all. Newt stared at her. Look at Crowley, doing 110 miles per hour on the M40 heading towards Oxfordshire. Even the most resolutely casual observer would notice a number of strange things about him. The clenched teeth, for example, or the dull red glow coming from behind his sunglasses. And the car. The car was a definite hint. Crowley'd started the journey in his Bentley, and he was damned if he wasn't going to finish it in the Bentley at all. Not that even the kind of car buff who owns his own pair of motoring goggles would have been able to tell it was a vintage Bentley. Not anymore. They wouldn't have been able to tell that it was a Bentley. They would only offer 50-50 that it had even been a car. There was no paint left on it for a start. It might still have been black, where it wasn't a rusty, smudged reddish brown, but this was a dull charcoal black. It travelled in its own ball of flames, like a space capsule making a particularly difficult re-entry. There was a thin skin of crusted, melted rubber left around the metal wheel rims, but seeing that the wheel rims were still somehow riding an inch above the road surface, this didn't seem to make an awful lot of difference to the suspension. It should have fallen apart miles back. It was the effort of holding it together that was causing Crowley to grit his teeth, and the biospatial feedback that was causing the bright red eyes. That and the effort of having to remember not to start breathing. He hadn't felt like this since the 14th century. The atmosphere in the quarry was friendlier now, but still intense. You've got to help me sort it out, said Adam. People have been trying to sort it out for thousands of years, but we've got to sort it out now. They nodded helpfully. You see, it's like, well, you know Greasy Johnson? The them nodded. They all knew Greasy Johnson and the members of the other gang in Lower Tadfield. They were older and not very pleasant. Hardly a week went by without a skirmish. Well, said Adam, we always win, right? Nearly always, said Wensleydale. Nearly always, said Adam. And more than half, anyway, said Pepper. 'Cause you remember when there was all that fuss over the old folks' party in the village hall when we... That doesn't count, said Adam. They got told off just as much as us. Anyway, old folks are supposed to like listening to the sound of children playing. I read that somewhere. I don't see why we should get told off because we've got the wrong kind of old folks, he's paused. Anyway, we're better than them. Oh, we're better than them, said Pepper. You're right about that. We're better than them all right. We just don't always win. Just suppose, said Adam slowly, that we could beat them properly, get them sent away or something, to make sure there's no more old gangs in Lower Tadfield apart from us. What do you think about that? What, you mean he'd be dead? Said Brian. No, just gone away. The them thought about this. Greasy Johnson had been a fact of life ever since they'd been old enough to hit one another with a toy railway engine. They tried to get their minds around the concept of a world with a Johnson-shaped hole in it. Brian scratched his nose. I reckon it'd be brilliant without Greasy Johnson, he said. Remember what he did at my birthday party? and I got into trouble about it. I don't know, said Pepper. I mean, it wouldn't be so interesting without old Greasy Johnson and his gang. When you think about it, we've had a lot of fun with old Greasy Johnson and the Johnsonites. We'd probably have to find some other gang or something. Seems to me, said Wensleydale, that if you asked people in Lower Tadfield, they'd say they'd be better off without the Johnsonites or the them. Even Adam looked shocked at this. Wensleydale went on stoically. The old folks club would, and Picky, and... But they're the good ones, Brian began. He hesitated. Well, all right, he said, but I bet they'd think it'd be a jolly sight less interesting if we all weren't here. Yes, said Wensleydale. That's what I mean. People around here don't want us or the Johnsonites, he went on more morosely. The way they're always going on about us just riding our bikes or skateboarding on their pavements and making too much noise and stuff. It's like the man said in the history books. A plaque on both your houses. This met with silence. One of those blue ones, said Brian eventually, saying Adam Young lived here or something? Normally an opening like this could lead to 5 minutes rambling discussion when the them were in the mood, but Adam felt that this was not the time. What you're all saying, he summed up in his best chairman tones, is that it wouldn't be any good at all if the Greasy Johnsonites beat the them or the other way round. That's right, said Pepper. Because, she added, if we beat them, we'd have to be our own deadly enemies. It'd be me and Adam against Brian and Wensleydale. She sat back. Everyone needs a Greasy Johnson, she said. Yeah, said Adam. That's what I thought. It's no good anyone winning. That's what I thought. He stared at Dog. Seems simple enough to me, said Wensleydale, sitting back. I don't see why it's taken thousands of years to sort out. That's because the people trying to sort it out were men, said Pepper meaningfully. Don't see why you have to take sides, said Wensleydale. Of course I have to take sides, said Pepper. Everyone has to take sides in something. Adam appeared to reach a decision. Yes, but I reckon you can make your own side. I think you'd better go and get your bikes, he said quietly. I think we'd better sort of go and talk to some people. Put, went Madame Tracy's motor scooter down Crouch End High Street. It was the only vehicle moving on a suburban London street jammed with immovable cars and taxis and red London buses. I've never seen a traffic jam like it, said Madame Tracy. I wonder if there's been an accident. Quite possibly, said Aziraphale. And then, Mr. Shadwell, unless you put your arms around me, you're going to fall off. This thing wasn't built for 2 people, you know. 3, muttered Shadwell, gripping the seat with one white-knuckled hand and his thunder gun with the other. Mr. Shadwell, I won't tell you again. You'll have to stop then, so as I can adjust me weapon, sighed Shadwell. Madame Tracy giggled dutifully, but she pulled over to the curb and stopped the motor scooter. Shadwell sorted himself out and put 2 grudging arms around Madame Tracy, while the thunder gun stuck up between them like a chaperone. They rode through the rain without talking for about 10 minutes. But. As Madame Tracy carefully negotiated her way around the cars and the buses. Madame Tracy found her eyes being moved down to the speedometer. Rather foolishly, she thought, since it hadn't worked since 1974. It hadn't worked very well before that. Dear lady, how fast would you say we were going? Asked Aziraphale. Why? Because it seems to me that we would go slightly faster walking. Well, with just me on top, the top speed is about 15 miles an hour, but with Mr. Shadwell as well, it must be, about 4 or 5 miles per hour, she interrupted. I suppose so, she agreed. There was a cough from behind her. Can you not slow down this hellish machine, woman? Asked an ashen voice in the infernal pantheon, which it goes without saying Shadwell hated uniformly and correctly. Shadwell reserved a special loathing for speed demons. Well, did you start half an hour earlier? Oh, yes, I think I did. Yes, I did. Sorry, Emmy. Sorry, Emmy. It's fine. I'm just jumping the gun today. Don't worry. In which case, said Aziraphale, we will get to Tadfield in something less than 5 hours. There was a pause from Madame Tracy then. How far away is Tadfield anyway? About 40 miles. Said Madame Tracy, who had once driven the scooter the few miles to nearby Finchley to visit her niece, but had taken the bus since because of the funny noise the scooter had started making on the way back. We should really be going at about 70 if we're going to get there in time, said Aziraphale. Sergeant Shadwell, hold on very tightly now. Goes back to Dragon Chaos. Thank you, Emmy. I appreciate you being here. Put. And a blue nimbus began to outline the scooter and its occupants with a gentle sort of a glow, like an afterimage all around them. Put. And the scooter lifted awkwardly off the ground with no visible means of support, jerking slightly until it reached a height of 5 feet, more or less. Don't look down, Sergeant Shadwell, advised Aziraphale. Said Shadwell, eyes screwed tightly shut, grey forehead beaded with sweat, not looking down, not looking anywhere. And off we go then. In every big-budget science fiction movie, there's the moment when a ship as large as New York suddenly goes to light speed. A twanging noise like a wooden ruler being plucked over the edge of a desk, dazzling refraction of light, and suddenly the stars have all been stretched out thin, and it's gone. This was exactly like that, except that instead of a gleaming 12-mile-long spaceship, it was an off-white 20-year-old motor scooter, and you didn't have the special rainbow effects. It probably wasn't going at more than 200 miles an hour, and instead of a pulsing whine sliding up the octaves, it just went put, whoosh. But it was exactly like that anyway. Where the M25, now a screaming frozen circle, intersects with the M40 to Oxfordshire, police were clustered around in ever-increasing quantities. Since Crowley crossed the divide half an hour earlier, their number had doubled. On the M40 side anyway. No one in London was getting out. In addition to the police, there were also approximately 200 others standing around. And they were inspecting the M25 through binoculars. They included representatives from Her Majesty's Army, the Bomb Disposal Squad, MI5, MI6, the Special Branch, and the CIA. There was also a man selling hot dogs. Everybody was cold and wet and puzzled and irritable, with the exception of one police officer who was cold, wet, puzzled, irritable, and exasperated. Look, I don't care if you believe me or not, he sighed. And I'm telling you, it's what I saw. It was an old car, a Rolls or a Bentley, one of those flash vintage jobs, and it made it over the bridge. One of the senior army technicians interrupted. It can't have done. According to our instruments, the temperature above the M25 is somewhere in excess of 700 degrees centigrade. Or 140 degrees below, added his assistant. Or 140 degrees below zero, added the senior technician. There does appear to be some confusion on that score, although I think we can safely attribute it to the mechanical error of some kind. This was true. There wasn't a thermometer on Earth that could have been persuaded to register both 700 degrees centigrade and minus 140 degrees centigrade at the same time, which was the correct temperature. But the fact remains that we can't even get a helicopter directly over the M25 without it winding up with helicopter nuggets. How on earth can you tell me that a vintage car drove over it unharmed? I didn't say it drove over it unharmed, corrected the policeman, who was thinking seriously about leaving the Metropolitan Police and going into business with his brother, who was resigning his job with the electricity board and was going to stop breeding chickens. It burst into flames. It just kept on going. Do you seriously expect any of us to believe, began somebody. A high-pitched keening noise, haunting and strange, like 1,000 glass harmonicas being played in unison, all slightly off-key, like the sound of the molecules of the air itself wailing in pain. And... whoosh! Over their heads it sailed, 40 feet in the air, engulfed in a deep blue nimbus which faded to red at the edges. A little white motor scooter, and riding it, a middle-aged woman in a pink helmet, and holding tightly to her, a short man in a Macintosh and a day-glow green crash helmet. The motor scooter was too far away for anyone to see that his eyes were tightly shut, but they were. The woman was screaming. What she was screaming was this. Geronimo! Hey sunshine, welcome on in. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're having a good day. We'll just carry on reading Good Omens. We actually started a little early today. I kind of forgot when I was supposed to be streaming, so I streamed at 8 o'clock rather than 8:30. So apologies. Emmy pointed it out to me. Anyway, it's fine. And a soft welcome in. Thank you very much for your daily check-in. I appreciate you being here. First time chatter, always lovely to have new people here. I hope you're having a good day. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we are just reading Good Omens. We've been reading this for the last few weeks. Wednesday is our reading day. We just like to relax, chill out. You know, people can just come in and lurk. They can do whatever they want to do. Yeah, it's just nice, relaxing time. I just got back from a long walk. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Hey, Reen, how's it going? Reen, when did you get here? I didn't know you were here. Oh, I appreciate you being here. If you're not feeling well or you need to go and do stuff, please feel free. I know you're not the best right now, so. But yeah, please make sure you're taking care of yourself, Reen. Ooh, okay, and lovely to see you too, Reen. Yes, we love seeing Reen. We love seeing Reen. One of the advantages of the wasabi, as Newt was always keen to point out, was that when it was badly damaged, it was very hard to tell. Newt had to keep driving Dick Turpin onto the verge to avoid fallen branches. You've made me drop all the cards on the floor. The car thumped back onto the road. A small voice from somewhere under the glove compartment said, "Oil pressure alert." "I'll never be able to sort them out now," she moaned. "You don't have to," said Newt manically. "Just pick one. Anyone, it won't matter." "What do you mean?" "Well, if Agnes is right, and we're doing all this because she predicted it, then any card picked right now has got to be relevant. That's logic." "It's nonsense." "Yeah? Look, you're even here because she predicted it. And have you thought what we're going to say to the Colonel if we get to see him, which of course we won't?" "I was here the whole time?" "Oh, well, I appreciate it, Reen. You should have said something. I didn't know. Anyway, I'm very grateful to have you here, Reen." Oh, that's cute. I like it. I like the hugs. I like my community taking care of each other. It's always nice to see. If we're reasonable... Listen, I know these kinds of places. They have huge guards made out of teak guarding the gates, anathema, and they have white helmets and real guns. You understand, which fire real bullets made of real lead, which can go right into you and bounce around and come out of the same hole before you can even say, "Excuse me, we have reason to believe that World War III is due any moment, and we're going to do the show right here." And then they have serious men in suits with bulging jackets who take you into a little room without windows and ask you questions like, "Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of a pinko subversive organisation, such as any British political party?" And we're nearly there. Look, it's got gates and wire fences and everything, and probably the kind of dogs that eat people. I think you're getting rather overexcited, said Anathema quickly, picking picking the last of the file cards up from the floor of the car. Overexcited? No, I'm getting very calmly worried that someone might shoot me. I'm sure Agnes would have mentioned it if we were going to get shot. She's very good at that sort of thing. She began absent-mindedly to shuffle the file cards. You know, she said, carefully cutting the cards and rifling the two piles together, I read somewhere that there's a sect that believes the computers are the tools of the devil. They say that Armageddon will come about because of the Antichrist being good with computers. Apparently it's mentioned somewhere in Revelations. I think I must have read about it in a newspaper recently. Oh, Daily Mail, Letters from America. August the 3rd? Said Newt. Just after the story about the woman in Worms, Nebraska, who taught her duck to play the accordion. Anathema spread the cards face down on her lap. So, computers are the tools of the devil, thought Newt. He had no problem believing it. Computers had to be the tools of somebody, and all he knew for certain was that it definitely wasn't him. The car jerked to a halt. The airbase looked battered. Several large trees had fallen down near the entrance, and some men with a digger were trying to shift them. The guard on duty was watching them disinterestedly, but he half turned and looked coldly at the car. All right, said Newt. Pick a card. Oh, you found a world in VR chat for... Can't whisper you, you have to whisper me first. Oh, God. Yeah, how's it all going? How's everybody doing? How are we all feeling? Are we enjoying ourselves? Are we having a good time? You all resting and relaxing? Oh dear. Anyway. Okay, I'll keep going. 3001. Behind the eagle's nest, a great ash have fallen. Is that all? Yes. We always thought it was something to do with the Russian Revolution. Keep going along this road and turn left. The turning led to a narrow lane with the base's perimeter fence on the left-hand side. Now pull in here. There's often cars here and no one takes any notice, said Anathema. What is this place? It's the local lover's lane. Is that why it appears to be paved with rubber? Reen, thank you for the hydrate. I'll take care of that now. I appreciate it. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you, Reen. Thank you for taking care of me. Very grateful. They walked along the hedge-shaped lane for 100 yards until they reached the ash tree. Sunshine, don't throw things at me. So rude. Agnes had been right. It was quite great. It had fallen right across the fence. A guard was sitting on it, smoking a cigarette. He was black. Newt always felt guilty in the presence of black Americans in case they blamed him for 200 years of slave trading. The man stood up when they approached, and then sagged into an easier stance. Oh, hi Anathema, he said. Hi George, terrible storm, wasn't it? Sure was. They walked on. He watched them out of sight. You know him? Said Newt, with forced nonchalance. Oh sure, sometimes a few of them come down to the pub. Pleasant enough in a well-scrubbed way. Would he shoot us if we walked in? Said Newt. You might well point a gun at us in a menacing way, Anathema conceded. That's good enough for me. What do you suggest we do then? Well, Agnes must have known something, so I suppose we just wait. Not too bad now the wind's gone down. Oh, Newt looked at the clouds piling up on the horizon. Good old Agnes, he said. Adam pedalled steadily along the road. dog running along behind him and occasionally trying to bite his back tire out of sheer excitement. There was a clacking noise and Pepper swung out of her drive. You could always tell Pepper's bike. She thought it was improved by a piece of cardboard cunningly held against the wheels by a clothes peg. Katz had learned to take evasive action when she was 2 streets away. I reckon we can cut along Drover's Lane and then up through Roundhead Woods, said Pepper. It's all muddy, said Adam. That's right, said Pepper nervously. It gets all muddy up there. We ought to go along by the chalk pit. It's always dry because of the chalk. And then up by the sewage farm. Brian and Wensleydale pulled in behind them. Wensleydale's bicycle was black and shiny and sensible. Brian's might have been white once, but its colour was lost beneath a thick layer of mud. It's stupid calling it a military base, said Pepper. I went up there when they had that open day and they had no guns or missiles or anything. Just knobs and dials and brass bands playing. Yes, said Adam. Not much military about knobs and dials, said Pepper. I dunno really, said Adam. It's amazing what you can do with knobs and dials. I got a kit for Christmas, Wensleydale volunteered. All electric bits. There were a few knobs and dials in it. You could make a radio or a thing that goes beep. I dunno, said Adam thoughtfully. I'm thinking more of certain people patching into the worldwide military communications network and telling all the computers and stuff to start fighting. Core, said Brian. That'd be wicked. Sort of, said Adam. It is a high and lonely destiny to be chairman of the Lower Tadfield Residents Association. R.P. Tyler, short, well-fed, satisfied, stomped down a country lane, accompanied by his wife's miniature poodle, Schutzy. R.P. Tyler knew the difference between right and wrong. There were no moral greys or of any kind in his life. He was not, however, satisfied simply with being vouchsafed the difference between right and wrong. He felt it his burden duty to tell the world. Not for R.P. Tyler, the soapbox, the polemic verse, the broadsheet. R.P. Tyler's chosen forum was the letter column of the Tadfield Advertiser. If a neighbour's tree was inconsiderate enough to shed leaves into R.P. Tyler's garden, R.P. Tyler would first carefully sweep them all up, place them in boxes, and leave the boxes outside his neighbour's front door with a stern note. Then he would write a letter to the Tadfield Advertiser. If he sighted teenagers sitting up on the village green, their portable cassette players playing, and they were enjoying themselves, he would take it upon himself to point out to them the error of their ways, and after he had fled their jeering, he would write to the Tadfield Advertiser on the decline of morality and the youth of today. Since his retirement last year, the letters had increased to the point where not even the Tadfield Advertiser was able to print all of them. Indeed, the letter R.P. Tyler had completed before setting out on his evening walk, had begun, Sirs, I note with distress that the newspapers of today no longer feel obligated to their public, we the people who pay your wages. He surveyed the fallen branches that littered the narrow country road. I don't suppose, he pondered, they think of the cleaning up bill when they send up these storms. Parish council has to foot the bill and to clean it all up, and we the taxpayers pay their wages. The they in this fort were the weather forecasters on Radio 4, who R.P. Tyler blamed for the weather. R.P. Tyler did not have a television, or as his wife put it, Ronald wouldn't have one of those things in the house, would you, Ronald? And he always agreed, although secretly he would have liked to have seen some of the smut and filth and violence that the National Viewers and Listeners Association complained of. Not because he wanted to see it, of course, just because he wanted to know what other people should be protected from. Schutzy stopped by a roadside beech tree to cock its leg. R.P. Tyler looked away, embarrassed. It might be that the sole purpose of his evening constitutional was to allow the dog to relieve itself, but he was dashed if he'd admit that to himself. He stared up at the storm clouds. They were banked up high in towering piles of smudged grey and black. It wasn't just the flickering tongues of lightning that forked through them, like the opening sequence of a Frankenstein movie. It was the way they stopped when they reached the borders of Lower Tadfield, and in their centre was a circular patch of daylight. But the light had a stretched, yellow quality to it, like a forced smile. It was so quiet. There was a low roaring. Down the narrow lane came 4 motorbikes. They shot past him and turned the corner, disturbing a cock pheasant who whirred across the lane in a nervous arc of russets and green. "Vandals!" called R.P. Tyler after them. The countryside wasn't made for people like them. It was made for people like him. He jerked Schutzi's lead, and they marched along the road. 5 minutes later, he turned the corner to find 3 of the motorcyclists standing around a fallen signpost, a victim of the storm. The 4th, a tall man with a mirrored visor, remained on his bike. R.P. Tyler observed the situation and leaped effortlessly to a conclusion. These vandals, he had of course been right, had come to the countryside in order to desecrate the war memorial and to overturn signposts. He was about to advance on them sternly when it came to him that he was outnumbered 4 to 1, and they were taller than him, and that they were undoubtedly violent psychopaths. No one but a violent psychopath rode a motorcycle in R.P. Tyler's world. So he raised his chin and began to strut past them, without apparently noticing they were there. Although, as a member, founder of his local neighborhood watch scheme, he did attempt to memorize the motorbike's number plates. All the while he composed in his head a letter. "Sirs, this evening I noted with distress a large number of hooligans on motorcycles infesting our fair village. Why, oh why, does the government do nothing about this plague of—" "Hi," said one of the motorcyclists, raising his visor, to reveal a thin face and a trim black beard. "We're kinda lost." "Ah," said R.P. Tyler disapprovingly. "The signpost must have blew down," said the motorcyclist. "Yes, I suppose it must," agreed R.P. Tyler. He noticed with surprise that he was getting hungry. "Yeah, well, we're heading for Lower Tadfield." An officious eyebrow raised. "You're Americans, with the Air Force base, I suppose?" He composed another letter in his head. "Sirs, when I did my national service, I was a credit to my country. I noticed with horror and dismay that airmen from the Tadfield Air Base are driving around our noble countryside dressed no better than common thugs. While I appreciate their importance in defending the freedom of the Western world—" Then his love of giving instructions took over. "You go back down that road for half a mile, then first left, and in a deplorable state of Try that one again. You go back down that road for half a mile, then first left. It's in a deplorable state of disrepair, I'm afraid. I've written numerous letters to the council about it. Are you civil servants or civil masters? That's what I ask them. After all, who pays your wages? Then second right, only it's not exactly right. It's on the left, but you'll find it bends round towards the right eventually. It's signposted Porrett's Lane, but of course it isn't Porrett's Lane. You look at the Ordnance Survey map, you'll see it's simply the eastern end of Forest Hill Lane. You'll come out in a village. Now you go past the Bull and Fiddle, that's a public house. And when you get to the church, I have pointed out to the people who compiled the Ordnance Survey map that it's a church with a spire, not a church with a tower. Indeed, I have written to the Tadfield Advertiser suggesting they mount a local campaign to get the map corrected. And I have every hope that once these people realise with whom they are dealing with, you'll see a hasty U-turn from them. Then you'll get to a crossroad. Now you go straight across that crossroad and you'll immediately come to a second crossroad. Now you can take either the left-hand fork or go straight on. Either way, you'll arrive at the airbase. Although the left-hand fork is almost a tenth of a mile shorter, and you can't miss it." Famine stared at him blankly. I'm not sure I got that," he began. "I did. Let us go." Shootsy gave a little yelp and darted behind R.P. Tyler, where it remained, shivering. The strangers climbed back onto their bikes. The one in white, a hippie by the look of him, thought R.P. Tyler, dropped an empty crisp packet onto the grass verge. "Excuse me," barked Tyler. "Is that your crisp packet?" "Oh, it's not just mine," said the boy. "It's everybody's." R.P. Tyler drew himself up to his full height. "Young man," he said, "how would you feel if I came over to your house and dropped litter everywhere?" Pollution smiled wistfully. "Very, very pleased," he breathed. "Oh, that would be wonderful." Beneath his bike, an oil slick puddled a rainbow on the wet road. Engines revved. "I missed something," said War. "Now, why are we meant to make a U-turn by the church?" "Just follow me," said the tall one in front, and the four rode off together. "I'm falling asleep. Ah, sunshine. Well, you just relax, take it nice and easy, enjoy yourself. I'll try not to put you to sleep." R.P. Tyler stared after them until his attention was distracted by the sound of something going clack, clack, clack. He turned. 4 figures on bicycles shot past him, closely followed by the scampering figure of a small dog. "You! Stop!" shouted R.P. Tyler. The them braked to a halt and looked at him. "I knew it was you, Adam Young, and your little cabal. What, might I inquire, are you children doing out at this time of night? Do your fathers know you're out?" The leader of the cyclists turned. "I can't see how you can say it's late," he said. Seems to me that if the sun's still out, then it's not late." "It's past your bedtime anyway," R.P. Tyler informed them. "Don't stick out your tongue at me, young lady." This was to Pepper. "Or I'll be writing a letter to your mother informing her of the lamentable and unladylike state of her offspring's manners." "Well, excuse us," said Adam, aggrieved. "Pepper was just looking at you. I don't know there was any law against looking." There was a commotion on the grass verge. Shootsy, who was a particularly refined toy French poodle, of the kind only possessed by people who were never able to fit children into their household budgets, was being menaced by Dog. "Master Young," ordered R.P. Tyler, "please get your mutt away from my Shootsy." Tyler did not trust Dog. When he had first met the dog 4 days ago, it had snarled at him and glowed its eyes red. This had impelled Tyler to begin a letter pointing out that Dog was undoubtedly rabid, certainly a danger to the community, and should be put down for the general good, until his wife had reminded him that glowing red eyes weren't a symptom of rabies, or, for that matter, anything seen outside of the kind of film that neither of the Tylers would be caught dead at, but knew all they needed to know about. Thank you very much. Sunshine. Honestly, that one hurt. My poor noggin. Oh. Adam looked astounded. "Dog's not a mutt. Dog's a remarkable dog. He's clever. Dog, you get off Mr. Tyler's horrible old poodle." Dog ignored him. He'd got a lot of dog catching up still to do. "Dog," said Adam ominously. His dog slunk back to his master's bicycle. "I don't believe you have answered my question. Where are you off to?" "To the airbase," said Brian. "If that's all right with you," said Adam, with what he hoped was bitter and scathing sarcasm. "I mean, we wouldn't want to go there if it wasn't all right with you." "You cheeky little monkey," said R.P. Tyler. "When I see your father, Adam Young, I will inform him in no uncertain terms that—" But the them were already pedalling off down the road in the direction of Lower Tadfield Air Base, travelling by the them's route, which was shorter and simpler and more scenic than the route suggested by Mr. Tyler. R.P. Tyler had composed a lengthy mental letter on the failings of the youth of today, covered falling educational standards, The lack of respect given to their elders and betters, the way they always seem to slouch these days instead of walking with a proper, upright bearing, juvenile delinquency, the return of compulsory national service, birching, flogging, and dog licenses. He was very satisfied with it. He had a sneaking suspicion that it would be too good for the Tadfield Advertiser, and had decided to send it to the Times. Put. Excuse me, love, said a warm female voice. I think we're lost. It was an ageling motor scooter, and it was being ridden by a middle-aged woman. Clutching her tightly, his eyes screwed shut, was a rain-coated little man with a bright green crash helmet on. Sticking up between them was what appeared to be an antique gun with a funnel-shaped muzzle. Oh? Where are you going? Lower Tadfield. I'm not sure of the exact address, but we're looking for someone, said the woman. Then in a totally different voice she said, His name is Adam Young. R.P. Tyler boggled. You want that boy? He asked. What's he done now? No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Boy, said the woman. You didn't tell me he was a boy. How old is he? Then she said, He's 11. Well, I do wish you'd mentioned this before. It puts a completely different complexion on things. R.P. Tyler just stared. Then he realized what was going on. The woman was a ventriloquist. What he had taken for a man in a green crash helmet, he now saw was a ventriloquist's dummy. He wondered how he could ever have assumed it was human. He felt the whole thing was in vaguely bad taste. I saw Adam Young not 5 minutes ago, he told the woman. He and his little cronies were on their way to the American Air Base. Hey Ninja, how's it going? Welcome on in. I appreciate you being here. Rini, if you don't worry, if you're just lurking, that's quite alright. I understand. You do what you gotta do. Yeah, having a good day, Ninja. Hope things are going alright with you. We're just carrying on reading Good Omens. We are getting quite close to the end, to be fair. I think we might have another stream of this, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. Oh dear, said the woman, paling slightly. I never really liked the Yanks. They're really very nice people, you know. Yes, but you can't trust people who pick up the ball all the time when they play football. Excuse me, said R.P. Tyler. I think it's very good, very impressive. I'm deputy chairman of the local Rotary Club, and I was wondering, do you do private functions? Only on Thursdays, said Madame Tracy disapprovingly, and I charge extra. And I wonder if you could direct us to... Mr. Tyler had been here before. He wordlessly extended a finger, and the little scooter went put down the narrow country lane. As it did so, the grey dummy in the green helmet turned around and opened one eye. "You great southern pillock," it croaked. R.P. Tyler was offended, but also disappointed. He'd hoped it would be more lifelike. You've been quite busy? No worries, Ninja, no worries. I appreciate you coming by. Yeah, we're just chilling, we're just relaxing. Yeah, I hope you've been taking care of yourself. Make sure everybody, I think that goes for everybody here. Please make sure that you guys are looking after yourselves. I really appreciate your coming in, but your health and well-being is should be your top priority. R.P. Tyler, only 10 minutes away from the village, paused while Schütze attempted another of its wide range of eliminatory functions. He gazed over the fence. His knowledge of country law was a little hazy, but he felt fairly sure that if the cows lay down, it meant rain. If they were standing, it would probably be fine. These cows were taking it in turns to execute slow and solemn somersaults. I do love this book. These cows were taking it in turns to execute slow and solemn somersaults, and Tyler wondered what it presaged for the weather. He sniffed. Something was burning. There was an unpleasant smell of scorched metal and rubber and leather. "Excuse me," said a voice from behind him. R.P. Tyler turned around. There was a large, once black car on fire in the lane. and a man in sunglasses was leaning out of one window, saying through the smoke, "I'm sorry, I've managed to get a little lost. Can you direct me to Lower Tadfield Air Base? I know it's around here somewhere." "Your car is on fire." No. Tyler just couldn't bring himself to say it. I mean, the man had to know that, didn't he? He was sitting in the middle of it. Possibly it was some kind of practical joke. So instead he said, "I think you must have taken a wrong turn about a mile back. A signpost is blown down." The stranger smiled. "That must be it," he said. The orange flames flickering below him gave him an almost infernal appearance. The wind blew towards Tyler, across the car, and he felt his eyebrows fizzle. "Excuse me, young man, but your car is on fire, and you're sitting in it without burning, and incidentally, it's red hot in places." No, he couldn't say it. Should he ask the man if he wanted him to phone the AA? Instead, he explained the route carefully, trying not to stare. "That's terrific, much obligated," said Crowley as he began to wind up the window. R.B. Tyler had to say something. "Excuse me, young man," he said. "Yes?" "I mean, it's not the kind of thing you don't notice, your car being on fire." A tongue of flame licked across the charred dashboard. "Funny weather we're having, isn't it?" he said lamely. "Is it?" said Crowley. "I honestly hadn't noticed." And he reversed back down the country lane in his burning car. "That's probably because your car is on fire," said R.B. Tyler sharply. He jerked Schutz's lead, dragged the little dog to heel. "To the editor. Sir, I would like to draw your attention to a recent tendency I have noticed for today's young people to ignore perfectly sensible safety precautions while driving. This evening I was asked for directions by a gentleman whose car was... No. Driving a car that... No. It was on fire." His temper getting worse, R.B. Tyler stomped the final stretch back into the village. You cozy sunshine. I hope you're relaxing, just taking it nice and easy, nice and calm, relaxed. "Oi!" shouted R.B. Tyler. "Young!" Mr. Young was in his front garden, sitting on his deck, chain-smoking his pipe. This had more to do with Deirdre's recent discovery of the menace of passive smoking, banning of smoking in the house. It did not improve his temper, neither did being addressed as young by Mr. Tyler. "Yes?" "Your son, Adam." Mr. Young sighed. "What's he done now?" "Do you know where he is?" Mr. Young checked his watch. "Getting ready for bed, I would assume." Tyler grinned, tightly, triumphantly. "I doubt it. I saw him and his little friends and that appalling mongrel not half an hour ago, cycling towards the airbase." Mr. Young puffed on his pipe. "You know how strict they are up there," said Mr. Tyler, in case Mr. Young hadn't got the message. "You know what a one your son is for pressing buttons and things," he added. Mr. Young took his pipe out of his mouth and examined the stem thoughtfully. He said. "I see," he said. "Right," he said. And he went inside. At exactly that same moment, 4 motorbikes swished to a halt a few hundred yards from the main gate. The riders switched off their engines and raised their helmet visors. Well, 3 of them did. "I was rather hoping we could crash through the barriers," said War wistfully. "That'd only cause trouble," said Famine. "Good. Trouble for us, I mean. The power and the phone lines must be down, but they're bound to have generators and they'll certainly have radio. If someone starts reporting that terrorists have invaded the base, then people will start acting logically and the whole plan collapses." "Huh. We go in. We do the job. We go out. We let human nature take its course," said Death. "This isn't how I imagined it, chaps," said War. I haven't been waiting for thousands of years just to fiddle around with bits of wire. It's not what you'd call dramatic. Albrecht Dürer didn't waste his time doing woodcuts of the 4 button presses of the apocalypse, I know that. I thought there'd be trumpets, said Pollution. Look at it like this, said Famine. It's just groundwork. We get to do the riding forth afterwards. The proper riding forth. Wings of the storm and so on. You've got to be flexible. Weren't we supposed to meet someone? Said War. There was no sound but the metallic noises of cooling motorbike engines. Then Pollution said, You know, I can't say I imagine it'd be somewhere like this either. I thought it'd be, well, a big city, or a big country. New York, perhaps, or Moscow, or Armageddon itself. There was another pause. Then War said, Where is Armageddon anyway? Funny you should ask, said Famine. I've always meant to look it up. There's an Armageddon, Pennsylvania, said Pollution. Or maybe it's Massachusetts, or one of them places. Lots of guys in heavy beards and seriously black hats. Nah, said Famine. It's somewhere in Israel, I think. Mount Carmel. I thought that was where they grow avocados. And the end of the world. Is that right? That's one big avocado. I think I went there once, said Pollution. The old city of Megiddo, just before it fell down. Nice place. Interesting royal gateway. War looked at the greenness around them. Boy, she said, we take a wrong turning. The geography is immaterial. Sorry, Lord? If Armageddon is anywhere, it is everywhere. That's right, said Famine. We're not talking about a few square miles of scrub and goats anymore. There was another pause. Let us go. War coughed. It's just that I thought that he'd be coming with us. Death adjusted his gauntlets. This, he said firmly, is a job for the professionals. Afterwards, Sergeant Thomas A. Deisenberger recalled events at the gate as having happened like this. A large staff car drew up by the gate. It was sleek and official looking, although afterwards he wasn't entirely sure why he had thought this, or why it sounded momentarily as though it were powered by motorbike engines. Guys, we're about to have an ad break. I'm going to put it onto the BRB screen. We'll take a 2-3 minute break. And when we come back, we will have no ads for the rest of the stream. I will see you all very, very shortly. I can't go this way. Oh god. Okay, this was a mistake. This was a mistake. Oh god, this was a mistake. Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh god. I do not like that. Oh god, he grabbed me. Oh god. I don't like this. What's that? Titanium. Oh, we can mine titanium down here as well. I'm not too desperate for titanium because we can find loads of that easily with just some scraps. What the fuck was that? Oh my god, what the fuck are you? 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 Get drilled, get drilled, get drilled. Fuck off. Might grab you. Alright, you run away then. Go on then. Screw you. Whew, okay. Fuck that. I can break this apart with the drill. Okay. Fuck me. Sombra, that was good timing with the... EMP your ships? Oh, okay. I think I was hiding behind a rock and he didn't EMP me properly, but...
What was that for? Oh my god.
Just to fluster you.
Shut up. No, for that, I'm gonna throw you. You're gonna get thrown.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah, behind you. Perfect. Oh, holy crap.
Yeah, that was a good throw. That was a good throw. Hang on, let me bring up the second.
Really good throw.
Yeah, let me show you. Guys, can you see where I threw her to? She's like right. Yeah.
That would go. I did not think I'd go
Yeah.
that far.
Yeah.
Try again,
Yeah.
try again,
I
do
can.
again,
I
do
can
again.
probably. I can probably like throw you. Hang on. Let me get good grip. Good grip on you.
Okay,
Right.
go, go,
Okay.
go, go.
You ready? And upset.
Yes, I'm ready.
Oh, I stuck the. Look at that! I got her on the shelf. That was a shot and a half. Thank you very
Elf
much.
on the shelf.
She is now an elf on the shelf. You are welcome. You are welcome.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, and I've got a med kit as well. I need to remember to do that next time. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I'm a professional. I haven't spent like several hours playing this game already, and only just learned that. Hmm.
Here. Get out of here. No, you're not getting anything
come
from me
come
tonight.
here,
No.
Reem, come
No,
come
you
come here,
cannot.
come here,
You're not,
come
you
here,
cannot
come
butter
here.
me up. No,
Come
no,
here,
no.
come here.
No, you got me backed up in the corner. Oh no, Chad. Help me, help me. Help me, he's got me
Oh,
backed up in the
hang
corner.
on.
Oh no, this is
Hang
so
on.
tragic. This is so tragic. This
Oh
is
yeah,
so
you
tragic.
you seem really broken
What
up
am I
about this.
gonna
Hang on.
do?
I could
Oh,
do the
no.
I could do the anime trope, be like the
Oh.
oh hey.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Thank you for bearing with us through the ad break. We now have no ad breaks for the rest of stream. We can just chill out, relax, keep on reading. Okay. I hope you all made sure to go and grab a drink, stretch your legs, and take care of yourselves. 4 generals got out. Again, the sergeant was a little uncertain of why he had fought this. They had proper identification. What kind of identification, admittedly, he couldn't quite recall. But it was proper. He saluted. One of them said, "Surprise inspection, soldier." To which Sergeant Thomas A. Deisenberger replied, "Sir, I have not been informed as to the incidence of a surprise inspection at this time, sir." "Of course not," said one of the generals. "That's because it's a surprise." The sergeant saluted again. "Sir, permission to confirmate this intelligence with base command, sir," he said uneasy. The tallest and thinnest of the generals strolled a little way from the group, turned his back, and folded his arms. One of the others put a friendly arm around the sergeant's shoulders and leaned forward in a conspiratorial way. "Now see here," he squinted at the sergeant's name. "Deisenberger. Maybe I'll give you a break. It's a surprise inspection, got that? Surprise. That means no getting on the horn the moment we're gone through here, understand? No leaving your post. Career soldier like you'll understand that, am I right?" Added. He winked. "Otherwise you'll find yourself busted so low you'll have to say sir to an imp." Sergeant Thomas A. Deisenberger stared at him. "Private," hissed one of the other generals. According to her name tag, her name was War. Sergeant Deisenberger had never seen a female general like her before, but she was certainly an improvement. "What? Private, not imp." "Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, private. Okay, soldier?" Sergeant considered the very limited number of options at his disposal. "Sir, surprise inspection, sir?" he said. Provisionatedly classified at this time, said Famine, who had spent years learning how to sell to the federal government and could feel the language coming back to him. "Sir, affirmative, sir," said the sergeant. "Good man," said Famine, as the barrier was raised. "You'll go a long way." He glanced at his watch. "Very shortly." Sometimes human beings are very much like bees. Bees are fiercely protective of their hive, provided you're outside of it. Once you're in, the workers sort of assume that it must have been cleared by management and take no notice. Various freeloading insects have evolved a mellifluous... Jesus, that's what... Various freeloading insects have evolved a mellifluous existence because of this very fact. Humans act the same way. No one stopped the four as they purposely made their way into one of the long, low buildings under the forest of radio masts. No one paid any attention to them. Perhaps they saw nothing at all. Perhaps they saw what their minds were instructed to see, because the human brain is not equipped to see war, famine, pollution, and death when they don't want to be seen, and has got so good at it that it often manages not to see them even when they abound on every side. The alarms were totally brainless and thought they saw four people where people shouldn't be and went off like anything. Newt did not smoke because he did not allow nicotine or alcohol entry to the temple of his body, more accurately, the small Welsh Methodist tin tabernacle of his body. If he had, he would have choked on the cigarette that he would have been smoking at this time in order to steady his nerves. Anathema stood up purposely and smoothed the creases in her skirt. "Don't worry," she said. "They don't apply to us. Something's probably happening inside." She smiled at his pale face. "Come on," she said. "It's not the OK Corral." "No, they've got better guns for one thing," said Newt. She helped him up. "Never mind," she said. "I'm sure you'll think of a way." It was inevitable that all four of them couldn't contribute quite so much, War thought. She'd been surprised at her natural affinity for modern weapon systems, which were so much more efficient than bits of sharp metal. And of course, pollution laughed at absolutely foolproof, fail-safe devices. Even Famine at least knew what computers were. Whereas, well, he didn't do anything much except hang around. Although he did it with a certain style. It had occurred to War that there might one day be an end to war, and an end to famine, possibly even an end to pollution. And perhaps this was why the fourth and greatest horseman was never exactly what you might call one of the lads. It was like having a tax inspector in your football team. Great to have him on your side, of course, but not the kind of person you wanted to have a drink and a chat with in the bar afterwards. You couldn't be 100% at your ease. A couple of soldiers ran through him as he looked over Pollution's skinny soldier. "What are those glittery things?" he said, in the tones of one who knows he won't be able to understand the answer, wants to be seen to be taking an interest. 7-segment LED display, said the boy. He laid loving hands on a bank of relays which fused under his touch and then introduced a swathe of self-replicating viruses that whirred away on the electronic ether. I could really do without those bloody alarms, muttered Famine. Death absent-mindedly snapped his fingers. A dozen klaxons gurgled and died. "I don't know, I rather like them," said Pollution. War reached inside another metal cabinet. This wasn't the way she'd expected things to be, she had to admit, but when she ran her fingers over and sometimes through the electronics, there was a familiar feel. It was an echo of what you got when you held a sword. She felt a thrill of anticipation at the thought that this sword enclosed the whole world, a certain amount of the sky above it as well. It loved her. A flaming sword. Mankind had not been very good at learning that swords are dangerous if left lying around, although it had done its limited best to make sure that the chances of one this size being wielded accidentally were high. A cheering thought that it was nice to think that mankind made a distinction between blowing their planets to bits by accident and by design. Pollution plunged his hands into another rack of expensive electronics. The guard on the hole in the fence looked puzzled. He was aware of excitement back in the base, and his radio seemed to be picking up nothing but static. His eyes were being drawn again and again to the card in front of him. He'd seen many identity cards in his time. Military, CIA, FBI, KGB even. And being a young soldier had yet to grasp that the more insignificant an organization is, the more impressive are its identity cards. This one was hellishly impressive. His lips moved as he read it again, all the way down. The Lord Protector of the Commonwealth of Britain charges and demands. through the bit about commandeering all kindling, rope, and igniferous oils, right down to the signature of the Witchfinder Army's First Lord Adjutant. Praise him, all ye works of the Lord, Fly Fortification Smith. Newt kept his thumb over the bit about 9p per witch and tried to look like James Bond. Finally, the guard's probing intellect found a word he thought he recognised. "What's this here?" he said suspiciously. "About us got to give you faggots." "Oh, we have to have them," said Newt. "We burn them." "Say what?" "We burn them." The guard's face broadened into a grin, and they told him England was soft. "Right on," he said. Something pressed into the small of his back. "Drop your gun," said Anathema behind him, "or I shall regret that what I shall have to do next." Well, it's true, she thought as she saw the man stiffen in terror. If he doesn't drop the gun, he'll find out this is a stick, and I shall really regret having to be shot. At the main gate, Sergeant A. Deisenberg was also having problems. A little man in a dirty mac kept pointing a finger at him and muttering, while a lady who looked slightly like his mother talked to him in urgent tones and kept interrupting himself in a different voice. "It really is vitally important that we are allowed to speak to whoever is in charge," said Aziraphale. "I really must ask that he..." "He's right, you know. I'd be able to tell if he was lying." "Yes, thank you. I think we'd really achieve something if you'd kindly allow me to carry on." "All right. Thank you. I was only trying to put in a good word. Yes, you were asking him to..." "Yes, all right. Now..." "Do you see my finger?" shouted Shadwell, whose sanity was still attached to him, but only on the end of a long and rather frayed string. "Do you see it? This finger, laddie, could send you to meet your maker." Sergeant Deisenberg stared at the black and purple nail a few inches from his face. As an offensive weapon, it rated quite highly, especially if it was ever used in the preparation of food. The telephone gave him nothing but static. He'd been told not to leave his post. His wound from Nam was starting to play up. He'd slipped and fallen in a hotel shower when he took a holiday there in 1983. Now the mere sight of a bar of yellow soap could send him into near-fatal flashbacks. He wondered how much trouble he'd get into for shooting non-American civilians. The 4 bicycles pulled up a little way from the base. Tire marks in the dust and a patch of oil indicated that other travellers had briefly rested there. "What are we stopping for?" said Pepper. "I'm thinking," said Adam. It was hard. The bit of his mind that he knew as himself was still there, but it was trying to stay afloat on a fountain of tumultuous darkness. What he was aware of, though, was that his 3 companions were 100% human. He'd got them into trouble before, in the way of torn clothes, docked pocket money, and so on. But this one was almost certainly going to involve a lot more than being confined to the house and made to tidy up your room. On the other hand, there wasn't anyone else. "All right," he said. "We need some stuff, I think. We need a sword, crown, and some scales." They stared at him. "What, just here?" said Brian. "There's nothing like that here." "I dunno," said Adam. "When you think about the games and that, you know, we've played." Just to make Sergeant Deisenberg's day, a car pulled up, and it was floating several inches off the ground because it had no tyres or paintwork. What it did have was a trail of blue smoke, and when it stopped it made the pinging noise made by metal cooling down from a very high temperature. It looked as if it had smoked glass windows, although this was just an effect caused by it having ordinary glass windows but a smoke-filled interior. The driver's door opened, and a cloud of choking fumes got out. Then Crowley followed it. He waved the smoke away from his face, blinked, and then turned the gesture into a friendly wave. "Hi," he said. "How's it going? Has the world ended yet?" "You won't let us in, Crowley," said Madame Tracy. Aziraphale, is that you? Nice dress, said Crowley vaguely. He wasn't feeling very well. For the last 30 miles, he had been imagining that a ton of burning metal rubber and leather was a fully functioning automobile, and the Bentley had been resisting him fiercely. The hard part had been to keep the whole thing rolling after the all-weather radials had burned away, because beside him the remains of the Bentley dropped suddenly onto its distorted wheel rims as he stopped imagining that it had tires. He patted a metal surface hot enough to fry eggs on. You wouldn't get that sort of performance out of one of those modern cars, he said lovingly. Green, thank you very much for the promo, I appreciate it. Sunshine, what are you throwing things at me for? Come on. So rude, so rude. They stared at him. There was a little electronic click. Don't bonk me. Wow, so rude, so rude. There was a little electronic click. The gate was rising. The housing that contained the electric motor gave a mechanical groan and then gave up in the face of the unstoppable force acting on the barrier. Hey, said Sergeant Deisenberger, which one of you did that? Zip, 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 and a small dog, its legs a blur. They stared at the four ferociously pedaling figures that ducked under the barrier and disappeared into the camp. The sergeant pulled himself together. Hey, he said, but much more weakly this time. Did any of them kids have some space alien with a face like a friendly turd in a bike basket? Don't think so, said Crowley. Then, said Sergeant Deisenberger, they're in real trouble. He raised his gun. Enough of this pussying around. He kept thinking of Soap. And so, he said, are you. I warned you, Shadwell began. This has gone on too long, said Aziraphale. Sort it out, Crowley, there's a dear chap. Said Crowley. I'm the nice one, said Aziraphale. You can't expect me to... Oh, blast it. You try to do the decent thing, and where does it get you? He snapped his fingers. There was a pop like an old-fashioned flashbulb, and Sergeant Thomas A. Deisenberger disappeared. Said Aziraphale. See, said Shadwell, who hadn't quite got the hang of Madame Tracy's split personality. Nothing to it. You stick by me, you'll be all right. Well done, said Crowley. Never thought you had it in you. No, said Aziraphale, nor did I. In fact, I do hope I haven't sent him somewhere dreadful. You'd better get used to it right now, said Crowley. You just send them. Best not to worry about where they go. He looked fascinated. Aren't you going to introduce me to your new body? Oh? Yes, of course. Madame Tracy, this is Crowley. Crowley, Madame Tracy. Charmed, I'm sure. Let's go on in, said Crowley. He looked sadly at the wreckage of the Bentley, and then brightened. The jeep was heading purposely towards the gate, and it looked as though it was crowded with people. These people were about to shout questions and fire guns and not worry about which order they did this in. He brightened up. This was more what you might call his area of competence. He took his hands out of his pockets and he raised them like Bruce Lee, and then he smiled like Lee Van Cleef. Ah, he said, here comes transport. They parked their bikes outside of the low building. Wensleydale carefully locked his. He was that kind of boy. So what will these people look like, said Pepper. They could look like all sorts, said Adam doubtfully. They're grown-ups, are they? Said Pepper. Yes, said Adam. More grown-up than you've ever seen before, I reckon. Fighting grown-ups is never any use, said Wensleydale gloomily. You always get into trouble. You don't have to fight 'em, said Adam. You just do what I told you. The them looked at the things they were carrying. As far as tools to mend the world were concerned, they did not look incredibly efficient. How'll we find 'em? Said Brian, doubtfully. I remember when we came to the open days. It's all rooms and stuff. Lots of rooms and flashing lights. Adam stared thoughtfully at the buildings. The alarms were still yodeling. Well, he said, it seems to me Hey, what are you kids doing here? It wasn't a 100% threatening voice, but it was near the end of its tether, and it belonged to an officer who'd spent 10 minutes trying to make sense of a senseless world where alarms went off and doors didn't open. Two equally harassed soldiers stood behind him, slightly at a loss as how to deal with 4 short and clearly Caucasian juveniles. One of them, marginally female. Don't you worry about us, said Adam airily. We're just looking around. Now you just, the lieutenant began. Go to sleep, said Adam. You just go to sleep. All you soldiers here go to sleep. Then you won't get hurt. You all just go to sleep now. The lieutenant stared at him, his eyes trying to focus. Then he pitched forward. Cool, said Pepper as the others collapsed. How did you do that? Well, said Adam cautiously. You know that bit about hypnotism in the boy's own book of 101 things to do that we could never make work? Yes. Well, it's sort of like that, only now I've found out how to do it. He turned back to the communications building. He pulled himself together, his body unfolding from its habitual comfortable slouch into an upright bearing Mr. Tyler would have been proud of. Right, he said. Thought for a while. Then he said, Come and see. If you took the world away and just left the electricity, it would look like the most exquisite Oh god, I don't know that one. It would look like the most exquisite filigree? I'm not familiar with that word. Ever made. A ball of twinkling silver lines with the occasional coruscating spike of a satellite beam. Even the dark areas would glow with radar and commercial radio waves. It could be the nervous system of a great beast. Here and there cities make knots in the web, but most of the electricity is, as it were, mere Jesus, this was as it were, mere musculature, concerned only with crude work. But for 50 years or so, people have been giving electronic brains. And now it was alive in the same way that fire... Oh. This one is so bad. And now it was alive in the same way that fire is alive. Switches were welding shut, relays fused, in the heart of silicon chips whose microscopic architecture looked like a street plan of Los Angeles. Fresh pathways opened up. Hundreds of miles away, bells rang in the underground rooms, and men stared in horror at what certain screens were telling them. Heavy steel doors shut firmly in secret hollow mountains, leaving people on the other side to pound on them and wrestle with fuse boxes which had melted. Bits of desert and tundra slid aside, letting fresh air into air-conditioned tombs, and blunt shapes ground ponderously into position. And while it flowed where it should not, it ebbed from its normal beds. In cities, the traffic lights went, then the street lights, then all the lights. Cooling fans slowed, flickered and stopped. Heaters faded into darkness. Lifts stuck. Radio stations choked off. Soothing music silenced. It has been said that civilization is 24 hours and 2 meals away from barbarianism. Night was spreading slowly around the spinning earth. It should have been full of pinpricks of light. It was not. There were 5 billion people down there. What was going to happen soon would make barbarism look like a picnic. Hot, nasty, and eventually given over to the ants. Death straightened up. He appeared to be listening intently. It was anyone's guess what he listened with. He is here, he said. The other 3 looked up. There was a barely perceptible change in the way they stood there. The moment before Death had spoken, they, the part of them that did not walk and talk like human beings, had been wrapped around the world. Now they were back, more or less. There was a strangeness about them. It was as if, instead of ill-fitting suits, they now had ill-fitting bodies. Famine looked as though he had been tuned slightly off station so that the Hivero dominant signal of a pleasant, thrusting, successful businessman was beginning to be drowned out by the ancient, horrible static of his basic personality. War's skin glistened with sweat. Pollution's skin just glistened. It's all taken care of, said War, speaking with some effort. It'll take its course. Not just the nuclear, Pollution said. It's the chemical. Thousands of gallons of the stuff in little tanks all over the world. Beautiful liquids, with 18 syllables in their name. And the old standbys. Say what you like. Plutonium may give you grief for thousands of years, but arsenic is forever. And then winter, said Famine. I like winter. There's something clean about winter. Chickens coming home to roost, said War. No more chickens, said Famine flatly. Only death hadn't changed. Some things don't. The four left the building. It was noticeable that Pollution, while still walking, nevertheless gave the impression of oozing. And this was noticed by Anathema and Newton Pulsifer. It had been the first building they'd come to. It had seemed much safer inside than out, and where there seemed to be a lot of excitement, Anathema had pushed open a door covered in signs that suggested that this would be a terminally dangerous thing to do. It had swung open at her touch. When they'd gone inside, it had shut and locked itself. There hadn't been a lot of time to discuss this after the four had walked in. What were they? Said Newt. Some kind of terrorists? In a very nice and accurate sense, said Anathema, I think you're right. What was all that weird talk about? I think possibly the end of the world, said Anathema. Did you ever see their auras? I don't think so, said Newt. Not nice at all. Oh? Negative auras, in fact. Oh? Like black holes. That's bad, is it? Yes. Anathema glared at the rows of metal cabinets. For once, just now, because it wasn't just for play, but was for real, machinery that was going to bring about the end of the world, or at least that part of it that occupied the layers between about 2 meters down and all the way to the ozone layer, wasn't operating according to the usual script. There were no big red canisters with flashing lights. There were no coiled wires with a cut-me look about them. No suspiciously large numeric displays were counting down towards a zero that could be averted with seconds to spare. Instead, the metal cabinets looked solid and heavy and very resistant to last-minute heroism. What takes its course? Said Anathema. They've done something, haven't they? Perhaps there's an off switch, said Newt helplessly. I'm sure if we looked around. These sorts of things are wired in. Don't be silly. I thought you knew about this sort of thing. Newt nodded desperately. This was a long way from the pages of Easy Electronics. By the look of the thing, he peered into the back of one of the cabinets. Worldwide communications, he said indistinctly. You could do practically anything. Modulate the mains power, tap into satellites, absolutely anything. You could zip, you could zap, ouch. Make things do zip, just about zap, ow. How are you getting on in there? Newt sucked his fingers. So far he hadn't found anything that resembled a transistor. He wrapped his hand in his handkerchief and pulled a couple of boards out of their sockets. Once one of the electronics magazines to which he subscribed had published a joke circuit which was guaranteed not to work. At least, they'd said in an amusing way, here's something all you ham-fisted hams out there can build in the certain knowledge that if it does nothing, it's working. It had diodes the wrong way round, transistors upside down, and a flat battery. Newt had built it, and it picked up Radio Moscow. He'd written them a letter of complaint, but they never replied. I really don't know if I'm doing any good, he said. James Bond just unscrews things, said Anathema. Not just unscrews, said Newt, temper fraying. And I'm not James Bond. If I was The bad guys would have shown me all the mega death levers and told me how they bloody well worked, wouldn't they? Zip. Only it doesn't happen like that in real life. I don't know what's happening and I can't stop it. Sunshine. You relaxing? You taking it nice and easy? Do you know what? Actually, that's a good point. We've just hit. We haven't long hit the 2-hour mark. We're at a good place to stop. We are just before them confront the 4 horsemen. So yeah, I think this is a good place for us to stop for today. Carry on next week on the Wednesday. Right, let me put my book down. There we go. Right, well, everybody, thank you very much for coming in today. I very much appreciate you all being here. Everybody who stayed with me, whether you've been lurking or just relaxing or whatever it is you're up to today, I'm very grateful for you being here. I appreciate the support. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope you all take care of yourselves. Let me have a quick look to see. Oh, so who's rated me? Got a few people who are online. Oh, Tonks is online. Oh, oh wait, Reen's on. Oh, Reen's streaming. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I haven't been able to do this before. Okay, we're doing this. We're doing this. I've been waiting so long to do this. Guys, I'm just gonna post the raid messages into chat. Raid follow. Oh, if I can spell follow correctly, that helps. There we go. Oh, I fixed the raid messages, by the way, so the follower message will work now. Raid sub, lovely. Okay, guys, we're gonna go raid over to Reen. She's just starting streaming now. Go show her some love and support. She's always supporting us, and it's about time I get a chance to return the favor. So, guys, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Please do take care of yourselves. Make sure to eat, hydrate, look after yourself both physically and mentally, and I will catch you all later. We are going to be streaming tomorrow. We'll be doing some more Monster Hunter. We'll be streaming 8 PM GMT time, usual time. So yeah, I hope I will see you all then. In the meantime, guys, take care, and yeah, I will catch you all later. I'm going to raid out now, so let me just make sure I did copy the message. I did, good, okay. Guys, I will see you all later. Have fun, take care, enjoy whatever you do for the rest of the day, and yeah, take it easy, everybody. Bye, bye everyone, bye, let's go.